Jay Sekulow is with us. He is with the American Center for Law and Justice. He's their chief counsel. He's also counsel to the president. That would be President Trump. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir.
I'm looking at all of this. It appears now one Senate Judiciary Democrat is now saying that Professor Ford won't testify unless the FBI investigates her claim. That just broke. What's your reaction?
Well, that's not the way the process. The process does not work that way. So I think what we have to go back to here is process. I think that's very important. You said this just a few minutes ago, and that's this. Here's what the Constitution says. The Constitution says the president has the authority to appoint nominees to courts, including the Supreme Court of the United States. He nominates. The job of the Senate is to advise and consent. That means they have the right to have hearings and determine the fitness of that particular candidate. There is no requirement that anybody in the Senate could put into the nature and scope of an inquiry. The FBI doesn't open up investigations on this in this type of situation that way. That's just not the way the process would work. So this is put in the background file. It's information that's gathered. But what has to happen here is Dr. Ford has made an accusation. She's going to be given the opportunity to present her case to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they will evaluate the veracity of that, and as well as Judge Kavanaugh's response, and vote up or down.
You know, I'm watching and I'm listening, you know, and you can't take politics out of it, nor can you take the history of the Democrats out of it. And I remember, and I played for this audience, as a matter of fact, when the opening came up with Anthony Kennedy on the court, I played and reminded everybody, this is what Democrats do often. We know every election year that Republicans are racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic. They want dirty air and water. They want children to die, and they want Granny thrown over the cliff. It's as predictable as the day is long, and I have all of the examples on tape that I have played many, many times on radio and TV. Similarly, we remember what Ted Kennedy did to Robert Bork. It was a slander and a smear, by the way, by all people, the guy that left a woman to drown after he drove a car off a bridge and went home and went to bed and didn't tell a soul. But they were successful in that case. Anita Hill just released an article in the New York Times, you know, how to get this thing right. But that came up. Justice Thomas, I mean, his background and his experience, I remember one of the big issues that came up in that case was that she had followed him from one job to another, if you recall.
Right.
Do you remember that case?
Well, yeah, sure. But, Sean, here's the reality. The reality is there was a reason the founders put forward the Constitution's separation of powers so that each branch of government has its role and authority. On it, we're talking about a confirmation to the Supreme Court of the United States. So if there is an allegation, which there has been, and if, as has happened, the Senate has determined that that allegation should be vetted, in other words, discussed, then you put that evidence forward under oath, under the penalty of perjury for both sides, and they put forward their case. And then the Senate makes a determination within the Judiciary Committee of whether they will move that to the floor of the Senate. If we follow the Constitution, it works. And that's what has to happen here.
Why do you think this was withheld for so long and the Democrats knew about this back in July and they did nothing?
Couple reasons. One is maybe they thought they were going to trip Judge Kavanaugh up on some other issue so that they wouldn't have to do this. Number two, look, I mean, 11-hour issues are frequent. You know that. I know that. This is an 11th hour issue. This is the October surprise, so to speak, except we're still in September. And I think you take it a step forward from there. And again, I'm not casting dispersions on anybody. Vet it out in the process. That's the best way for this to move forward.
I agree with you, and I know some people actually get mad at me for saying that.
Oh, I know. I'm getting people getting mad at me. I said it on your broadcast last night, but
but honestly, I mean, I think if you're going to be fair, and I believe in the presumption of innocence, which many of my colleagues in the media clearly do not. I think if somebody makes a serious allegation, that they should have an opportunity. Now, even Mitch McConnell has said that she can speak publicly. It can be an open hearing, and it could be on television, or it could be a closed-door hearing. Now, personally, I would like to see it, but I think that is done with great sensitivity and respect to her, and I think that's the way it should be handled. Right.
I think it's whatever's
best
comfortable
for her.
For Dr. Ford.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, but an allegation's been brought forward, but I'll tell you the one thing they should not do Don't have this allegation brought forward, no witness come forward, and then leave the judge hanging.
Well, it looks like it may come to that because it looks like it may come to that because
I don't think so. I think if the Senate follows the rules and follows the Constitution, there will be a just outcome and a proper determination. But do you have to follow the rules?
You know, one thing that Lindsey Graham pointed out to me last night, and I hadn't thought of it, she said that she'd never intended to go public, but she did have a lie detector test administered, and it was shown to be truthful in August.
Right.
Does that seem suspicious to you?
Clearly, Senator Feinstein had this information for months, and the whoever's involved in putting this forward is trying to tighten their case up. That's what I think this is.
What do you mean by that? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, here's what's happened. You got an 11th hour attempt. The guy was sailing to confirmation, right? We all know that. Everybody knew it. He did great in his hearings. He's got a stellar reputation. Now an incident's been raised, an allegation that when he was literally, you're talking about when he was 16 years old, 30, whatever it is, 6 years ago.
36 years ago.
An allegation's been made. And the judge said he's ready to respond to that allegation once that allegation is put forward in a Senate hearing, which is the process. So everybody that says, well, you know, let's follow the rules, follow the Constitution, and follow the process, guess what? That's the way the country is set up to operate. So I think they're doing the right thing by offering Dr. Ford the opportunity to do it privately, open, whatever makes her more comfortable. Judge Kavanaugh should be able to respond accordingly. And that should be it. Then they should decide whether to vote or not, you know, whether to move it forward or not. They get the right to vote. And I think if we follow the Constitution here, this works out best for everybody. The one that's making the accusation and the one that's been accused.
Let me ask you, I would be negligent.
Due process. Yeah.
I'd be negligent if I didn't ask you about the president and the declassification and unredaction of FISA and the 302s and apparently emails from Comey and Strzok and Page and Orr and Christopher Steele. There's going to be a lot of information coming out. When do we expect it?
Yeah. Well, there's the president issued the order, as you know, last night. So the order's been issued. It went over to the Office of Director of National Intelligence as well as the Department of Justice, including the FBI. They have a process. They are doing what they call a compressed schedule. So, I don't know the dates any more than anybody else does, but I expect that we'll see documents in an expeditious fashion. I think you'll see them sooner rather than later, that's for sure.
All right, Jay Sekulow, Counsel to the President, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.